Good afternoon and welcome to you to my blog, and I just welcome you here. This one is a current one as of just before Christmas 2024. I'm speaking to you on the 22nd of December 2024. It's about Stephen Cottrell, the Archbishop of York, who is currently under fire for a degree of scandal and incompetence. A little bit of background for you. Stephen Cottrell is the second most senior clergyman in England at the moment. His co-archbishop, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, resigned a couple of months ago, and Stephen Cottrell is now mired in scandal and controversy. In 2010, Cottrell became the Bishop of Chelmsford, a post he stood with and continued in till 2019. In 2020, he became the Archbishop of York. In 2010, Stephen Cottrell, the present Archbishop of York, was fully informed about a vicar called the Reverend David Tudor, who was and is a sexual pervert who liked young girls. Chudah himself, his record goes back to 1988 and quite probably beyond that. He was a vicar and a defendant in two criminal trials in 1988. In the first trial, he was acquitted of indecent assault on a 15-year-old girl. Chudah admitted having sex with her when she became 16 years old. In the second trial, he was convicted of assault on 3 girls and was jailed for 6 months. But this was quashed because the judge himself misdirected the jury, so his conviction was squashed on a technicality. In 1989, Chudah was banned for sexual misconduct, but 5 years later, after 1989, was allowed to return to church ministry, surprisingly. In 2005, he was suspended as police investigated him for an indecent assault of a historical nature, said to be dated back into the 1970s. However, no evidence was brought forward, and this was dropped by the police. From 2008, he'd been working, but there were stipulations that he must not work with children and that he should not go into schools. Stephen Cottrell, as the Bishop then of Chelmsford, claims he couldn't take further disciplinary action against David Tudor and said his hands were basically tied, although this is arguable and was challenged by another bishop. In 2019, there was a fresh complaint against David Tudor. Cottrell was still Bishop of Chelmsford at that time. Cottrell claims back in 2019 that he acted immediately, suspending Tudor from all ministry. Although, to be fair, Tudor wasn't finally struck off as a minister of religion until late October 2024. Cottrell himself regrets, and he used that word regret, so it's a quote, that the pedophile Chudah had his ministry renewed not only once, but twice. Chudah himself, David Tudor, had paid off a woman, but to the sum of £10,000, a woman that allegedly he'd been abusing from the age of 11 years of age. He paid her off to remain quiet, and it was basically what we would call hush money. Chudah's senior role, so he was not only a vicar, he was an area dean and indeed later a canon in the Church of England, which is, both of those are more senior roles in the Church of England, were renewed in 2013 and 2018, while Stephen Cottrell was Bishop of Chelmsford. Even Stephen Cottrell admits that this case could have been handled differently. Cottrell was finally briefed about Chudah. Fully briefed about Chudah back in 2010. Helen Ann Hartley, who is the current Bishop of Newcastle, sees Cottrell as a discredited voice and quite clearly says that Cottrell cannot be a credible voice for the Church of England. One of Chudah's victims, who would rather remain nameless at this stage, a woman, says that he ought to resign. Not until October 2024 had Chudah admitted sexual misconduct and was finally fully sacked as a minister in the Church of England. So that is October 2024. The first case against him, criminal case against him, was 1988, and he's probably been active since the 1970s. He's now well on into his 60s, and this case is a shocking and scandalous one. And you could argue that the present bishop, Archbishop of York, who Cottrell now is, that's his role now, is going to face some serious calls for resignation. I'm going to just end this now with 4 questions. Why didn't Cottrell, Stephen Cottrell, as Bishop of Chelmsford, take firm action on David Tudor in 2010 to 2019? Question number 2, why weren't Tudor's roles as canon and area dean taken away by Cottrell? Another bishop at the time said that they could have been back in 2019, despite Cottrell saying that he didn't have the power. Apparently, another bishop says he did have, and those roles could have been taken away from David Tudor. Was Cottrell part of a cover-up by his staff and by the Church of England back in 2019? Is Stephen Cottrell right not to step down now in 2024 as the Archbishop of York, especially as in 2025 he will be taking on some of the duties of the now disgraced Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who had to resign over some of his actions as concerning John Smythe, who was a known pedophile. These are serious questions, and Stephen Cottrell must face them fair and square. Whether he will choose to answer these questions is another thing entirely. However, there is a slow burning flame under the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell. I would like to see him resign. I think when you weigh up some of the proven behaviours of David Tudor and the fact that Stephen Cottrell did not take action, it seems to me as if there's a major scandal here. Sadly, Stephen Cottrell is another busted flush. He ought to resign, and resign now, as the Bishop of Newcastle has suggested. Bishop Helen Ann Hartley, the Bishop of Newcastle, has said that he is not a credible voice. I'll leave it with you. I'm sure you'll hear more on the news about this. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'm sorry it's a bit negative, and sadly, I can't make any justification for that. It is negative, especially before Christmas. But you have my point of view and some questions that Cottrell ought to answer. Thank you, and have a good day.